XRP surged past $1.50 and Bitcoin's now trading over 73,000. But the real question is, especially after the last few months, is this real, right? Are we going to continue to move up, or is this another dead cat bounce that's going to lead to more chop? We're going to cover what to expect, what's actually happening, and why price is moving the way it is. And again, we're here for the long view, but we do cover the normal day-to-day price action so we have an understanding of where we are, so we know where we're going. We also have a lot of news, information, major information around tokenization that I plan on sharing with you guys. It's a little bit drier, but as you guys have learned by now, the dry stuff is usually what matters the most. So I have a ton of information to cover as far as new announcements around tokenization, new announcements around Canton Network, and what we can expect for XRP moving forward in the next few weeks. Let's hop into it. Let's get to the price, and remember, engage in the chat. Chat is the lifeblood of the stream, and hit the like button as we get into this, because the earlier we get the likes in the chat rolling, the larger it grows, the more ideas we get in, and the larger we can grow the community, because this channel is ultimately about the community. So when we're looking at XRP, though, we have the price pulled up here. If you've been in the stream for a while, I drew this line at $1.51.5, and I've also had this box up here for the last few weeks. So why did I draw a line at 151.5? Well, because after we had this pullback up to, let's see here, this pullback all the way up to $1.67 previously, right? It fell right back down and then kept pegging this line, right? 151.5 came up, kept falling, came up, kept falling. So we can see it attempting here. And then while I was tracking this, I saw that a lot of the tops essentially on its way kept hovering around this box area. So I drew a box. I wanted to see us push through this and then continue pushing through beyond 151.5 and hold it. So when we're looking at the price, we pushed through the box and we ran all the way to 151.5, just about almost exactly, and tapped off of it. It's trying to move up again. We need to see it push through 151.5 and then hold that as support to confirm a potential move beyond. Again, that's me. That's what I've been seeing. That's what I've been watching now for the last several weeks. You can see my analysis sitting in front of you. Now, again, XRP moves with Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is doing a similar story, and I have similar analysis set up. So when I've been looking at Bitcoin, I've been wanting to see it break past 72,000 and hold it. It tried it once, failed, and now it's trying a second time. So here's my thought process on what's going to happen. So if Bitcoin holds this 72,000 level and continues up to 74, 75,000, then I believe we will see XRP push through the 150 and continue up. If it holds 150 support, the 151.5 support, I think it continues to 180 as the next leg. Now, why are we seeing an increase in price, right? Why is number going up? Well, when you look at the overall market right now, crypto, surprisingly, is actually holding up very, very well after the Iran situation, we'll call it, right? We don't want to call it a war, operation, excursion, whatever the heck you want to call it. But crypto's been holding up extremely well given that, right? Multiple stocks pulling back 7, 8, 9, 10%. And we've actually seen crypto and Bitcoin as a whole just continue to chop and actually somewhat raise throughout this process. So when we look at Bitcoin, I have my two-tiered lines here. I always try to create like a little zone, because it always seems like it'll pop into that zone and then fall right back out of it. So with Bitcoin, I'm looking between 70 and 72,000. As you can see over the last several months, that's been a point of emphasis, right? Here, fall, here, fall, here, fall, right? Tap, tap. It hasn't been able to break through. This was the first time it broke through and it came right back under. So we want to see it break through and hold above the 72,000. If it does that, it should continue up to 75, 76,000, and we should also see a climb with XRP. Now, again, I don't hold Bitcoin. My personal holdings, my 5 pillars, are XRP, Canton Network, Chainlink, HBAR, and Ondo. And I invest 10% of my income to 4 of those assets. I'm no longer stacking Ondo now. I'm just holding what I have because I want to see some movement in the price of the asset. I believe my stack is good enough for what I want it to be. But you notice a similar story in all of those assets is that they are heavily dependent on real world asset tokenization. I have made my ploy, my infrastructure bet, if you will, centered around tokenization. Why? Because I think tokenization has nothing to do with the Clarity Act. Tokenization is not going away. And I have information and news for you on tokenization. Now, a lot of you might want an update on Canton's price. It's been going up today. It got up to 15.5, currently at almost 15.4 with a slight pullback. Again, Canton moves to the beat of its own drum. I am a large holder of Canton and XRP, my two favorite tokens. We can take a look real quick at the XRP ledger, looking at volume, payments volume, looking at account set activity. This is something that we do check regularly, but I've been slowing down on it because I've been doing more targeted streams focused on one particular topic, whereas today is kind of more of the traditional stream where we're covering a little bit of everything today. Getting back to the overall long view, if you will. Don't worry, I do have more targeted streams coming up in the future, though. Working on one that I think is extra fun, and that's going to be XRP versus the Canton network. Now, looking at payments volume, again, it's still holding over 1 million, but we did have Evernorth announce a 3 million in payments volume. I'm not sure where they're getting that number, but it was directly from Evernorth, and it said XRP ledger, like above it. I would hate to think that Evernorth is putting out false information, but I'm not seeing it here on the actual payments activity on Ledger. So it did make me raise an eyebrow when it came to that. However, account set activity still maintained high and climbing, steadily over 40,000 now for the last several days. And again, this is accounts coming online, permissions, on and off ramps. These are accounts getting ready to be used on the XRP ledger, and we can see the ramp up over the last several months versus what they've done over the previous history of the ledger down there at the bottom. Again, we try to look at data, real information we can follow. And of course, the overall crypto space is doing very, very well today. Everything is green, everything looks good, but when in doubt, zoom out and it tells the full story. There are a few major winners so far over the last month. That's MNT, Hype, and Zero, all doing 20 or near 20% returns over the last month. And technically over the last month, Bitcoin is up 6%, XRP is up 2%. So it looks like we're starting to get a little bit of a reversal, but the last couple days are a big part of that. Again, we want to see it hold beyond that $1.50 line. Now, time for the news, ladies and gentlemen. U.S. and China trade talks begin. Now, why am I talking about the U.S. and China? This is a crypto channel. Crypto follows the overall market. And we're talking about, when we're talking about blockchain technology and we're talking about these cryptocurrencies, okay, this is part of global financial infrastructure. This is that the main key, the main issue is the fact that we are, globalizing this technology. So China's Commerce Ministry said Friday the two sides are set to discuss trade and economic issues of mutual concern. And again, I mentioned this yesterday if you were in the stream, or maybe it was Saturday. I did a pop-up stream yesterday. But I mentioned this over the weekend, that the global economic framework as far as how things are positioned is shifting beneath our feet. I'm talking as far as the global powers and the world economies and how things are going to be moving forward in energy, trade, etc. And at the same time, we're having a complete shift of the financial infrastructure at the same time. So we have to watch both of these things happening to try and understand where we're going. Now, severe storms and tornado warnings cause flight disruptions and have forced the crypto tax roundtable to be postponed again. If you guys remember, it was postponed last month due to snow. Are they ever going to discuss crypto taxes? Is this ever going to get done? So snow canceled it the first time, tornadoes canceling it today. So again, still no discussion on the crypto tax roundtable, trying to get that pushed through. Now, when we talk about what's actually happening with tokenization, if you were in the stream yesterday, we actually focused a lot specifically on tokenization and the outlook for tokenization. This is the chairman of the SEC, Paul Atkins. This is what he says about tokenization moving forward. Let's hear what he has to say.
Into the system.
Do you expect this is where financial services is going? Are the major banks and the brokers out there today moving increasingly toward tokenization?
Oh, absolutely. And it's the way the world will be, here in the, maybe not even in 10 years, maybe even a lot less time, maybe a couple of years from now. So I think that all of this modernization of the markets, I think, is good. And the trouble that we've seen here over the past few years is that the SEC, unlike historically, it never was necessarily at the vanguard of pushing new innovations. It was always a little bit behind the market, of course. But here recently, it's been almost standing athwart the marketplace, and as it's as all these new innovations were coming about. So that's no more. We're actually embracing it, and I believe that we need to be embracing it to keep the United States at the forefront. As far as cryptocurrencies and whatnot, there were really only 2 countries in the world here in the last few years that were working to make cryptocurrencies illegal, and that was Communist China and the U.S. through the SEC. So that's changed. It's a new day now, and so we want to embrace this new technology.
So the chairman of the SEC doesn't think 10 years. He thinks it could be over the next couple of years that we get everything tokenized. This is our government. This is the SEC. This isn't BlackRock, JP Morgan, or some bank that could be pushing their own agenda. This is the United States government telling us that tokenization is happening, and he expects it to happen a lot faster. And again, tokenization is not impacted by the Clarity Act, okay? So that's one of the reasons why we're talking about it. One of the reasons I'm aligned with tokenization, and one of the reasons I love CC so much. But let's continue. We have tons more information. Ondo Finance says tokenized stocks change everything. It's similar to the benefits a stablecoin gave for cash. Once you tokenize stocks, you can send them 24/7. Let's hear what they have to say. This is on Market Domination, Yahoo Finance.
When we talk about tokenized security, Ian, my dad's listening right now, probably. He has no idea what you're talking about, just none. If you were to explain that to Andrew in plain, simple terms, we mean a security represented by a digital token on a blockchain. What's the benefits of that?
Well, the moment you put a token that represents a traditional financial asset on blockchain rails, you get all the benefit of that new infrastructure. That means that you can move these assets around 24/7, right? Imagine that you could transfer the stocks that you hold right now in your brokerage account immediately to your Coinbase account or to another type of wallet, and they would just arrive instantly. You can, as a result, take better advantage of different margin rates on different platforms. You can freely transfer them globally to someone else as a gift. There's a lot of benefits that you get the moment you tokenize, because then these assets live on crypto rails. It's very similar to the benefits that a stablecoin gave for cash. Once you tokenize stocks, ETFs, and the like, you get those same benefits. You can send them globally, use them 24/7, list them on crypto exchanges, trade them 24/7. All that stuff's not possible with normal stocks.
All right. So again, once they tokenize it, it basically turns it into the same kind of concept as a stablecoin. 24/7 trading. You can move it around freely and instantaneously. Opens up more markets to more people. Again, this is why the big banks are all for. This is why the big banks are all for tokenization, because they get paid on fees. They get paid every time something is transacted. That's why BlackRock's all for tokenization. That's why all of these banks are all for tokenization, because it's going to benefit them. More trading equals more fees. They don't care if the price goes up and down. They want you to actively trade. And the more you switch back and forth between things, the more trading you're doing. That's simple. Cora. Welcome to Canton Network. Introducing Cora, the private trading infrastructure for on-chain markets. Powered by Canton Network, launching this week. Again, more tokenized markets and tokenized infrastructures coming on the Canton Network. And the way the Canton Network is essentially set up, the more tokenization that comes on chain, the faster and higher it's going to drive that burn to mint ratio. At least that's what I'm looking at, and that's what my research is showing. CC is now live on Eterna Hybrid. Another venue opens up to access Canton Coin, the asset powering activity across the Canton Network. More liquidity, more participation, and more ways to engage with the ecosystem. Again, pushing out Canton Network, Canton Foundation. Spotlight on Premier #1 T-Rise is an end-to-end institutional tokenization platform across real estate, private credit funds, and commodities. They help bring real-world assets on chain, structuring them legally, issuing compliant blockchain-based tokens, and supporting them with the full lifecycle post-issuance. As a member of the Canton Foundation, T-Rise participates in governance and around the global synchronizer. This is a big piece of the Canton Network as far as synchronizing all these markets together. They're not just after repo, and contributes to the network's infrastructure. On Canton Network, they operate as a node validator and use Canton's privacy-preserving rails for compliant tokenization. They also announced a live real estate equity offering on Canton distributed via Join Republic, showing how tokenized real estate can be issued on regulatory markets or regulated market rails. So again, basically testing tokenized real estate now on the Canton Network. Again, we discussed that right now for their current burn to mint ratio, they're at a 0.83 as of yesterday when we were discussing the research, but that's only doing 5 to 7% of repo markets. That's not addressing all of these additional markets that are becoming on chain. That's not addressing the DTCC pilot that's going to be starting this quarter, right? Because they did say it was going to be starting in Q2. We've barely dipped a toe into what tokenization is going to be, and I'm focusing heavily on Canton because I have personally found that Canton Network has the most direct link, it seems, to tokenization, depending on how much of the actual market they capture, how much of the market share they actually capture of institutional tokenization and payments. Their partner stacks span Chainlink for Oracle infrastructure, Fireblocks for MPC wallet security, and Texture Capital for US compliant distribution, and Canton for institutional interoperability. 2026 is the year of interoperability. Remember, Chainlink has already partnered with Canton Network. It is growing out fast. Building the regulated asset onboarding layer for tokenized private markets, pleased to have them in the foundation. It's just getting bigger, man. Now, when I talk about the overall markets, I always have to mention my fear of a recession, because I do fear a recession. And the reason that is because of all the things I've discussed in previous streams. Cracks in private credit, credit card debt and credit card delinquency at an all-time high in consumers, auto loan delinquency at an all-time high with consumers, and home unaffordability at an all-time high, while pending home sales are at an all-time low. Not to mention AI, unemployment, inflation, all of these things we have to look at. But when you discuss that, when I discuss private credit, remember, when private credit breaks, that impacts the banks, that impacts the major banks, because who funds these private credit companies, right? Who funds them? The big banks do. So when they have to write off these loans, it's not good. And this is what we're looking at right now. Blue Owl, a $1.6 billion credit firm, halted quarterly withdrawals. BlackRock, a $26 billion private credit firm, capped withdrawals for the first time ever. Blackstone, subsidiary of BlackRock, mainly in real estate. Blackstone, $82 billion record withdrawal request at 7.9% in Q1. This is why they had to cap withdrawals. Morgan Stanley, $7.6 billion capped withdrawals. Cliffwater, $33 billion capped withdrawals. JP Morgan, $22 billion de-risking exposure because more collateral is required. These are major names, and none of this is good news, ladies and gentlemen. We have to read the tea leaves. I want to put my bullhorns on for everything, but we have to discuss what's really happening in the markets. I'm not going to lie to you. QCP. Pleased to share that QCP is joining the Canton Network as a super validator. This is a step towards moving institutional on-chain adoption from pilots to production. As a super validator, we will bring core collateral and margin workflows on-chain from agreements and allocation to confirm and settlement across real bilateral relationships while supporting sustained network activity across trading and settlement flows. with initiatives like QCP continues to build infrastructure that connects institutional capital with on-chain markets. I honestly wasn't sure fully who QCP was, so I did a little bit with Grok here. He said QCP Group's announcement highlights their approval as a super validator on the Canton network, giving with a weight of 5.0, enabling them to validate transactions and enhance network security while integrating institutional collateral workflows like margin allocation and bilateral settlements directly on-chain. This move advances Canton Network's role as a privacy-preserving settlement layer for regulated finance, where QCP will onboard 10 tokenized money market funds, making real-world assets issuable and verifiable to bridge traditional and on-chain markets. Okay, so bringing 10 tokenized money market funds on Canton Network. So again, tokenization on Canton Network. That's not repo, that's money market funds. The more tokenization comes on, the better. By linking super validator rewards to actual network activities such as coin burns from swaps, redemptions, and initiative incentives, genuine usage over speculation. Potentially accelerating institutional adoption of blockchain for efficient, scalable trading infrastructure. Breaking. Grayscale says XRP could be repriced once the Clarity Act passes. Listen to what they say. This is the Paul Barron Network, and this is Grayscale here. Let's see what they had to say.
Repricing would be in order for Ripple if we do get clarity through, especially around this whole Section 205.
I do, and nothing is guaranteed, of course. But look, I would say that the ETF products for XRP have been very popular. Our XRP product, these products are seeing lots of demand. And I think some investors are looking ahead to clarity and kind of asking what it means to unlock a further value in these networks. I think we would see a pricing across a range of assets, certainly including XRP. And in the specific instance of this blockchain, I do think clarifying some of the questions around the long-term supply outlook, what happens to all of those tokens, can help unlock value. If you were to reduce the future inflation of the XRP token, I think that would have some positive effect on price.
Huge, yeah. Repricing would be in order for
Grayscale
Ripple.
and Paul Barron both believe there will be a repricing of XRP following clarity, because mainly clarification around their escrow is what that sounds like to me. But it's still bullish. We like bullish news. Breaking. European Central Bank officially accept tokenized securities and collateral starting March 30th. XRP ledger code inside per Diana. The European Central Bank has confirmed that starting March 30th, banks and certain tokenized securities as collateral when borrowing from the Euro system. That means blockchain-based assets are being allowed into Europe's traditional financial system. An ECB report says Axiology's trading and settlement system uses open source code of the XRP ledger. That does not mean the ECB is directly using XRP or public XRPL itself. It means that the system connected to the new European tokenized finance framework is built on XRP ledger technology. Wall Street is putting $126 trillion stock market on the blockchain. NASDAQ and Intercontinental Exchange, the company that owns the New York Stock Exchange, are exploring ways to bring equities on chain. We're talking about a $126 trillion global stock market. The idea is simple. Turn traditional shares into tokenized equities that can trade on blockchain rails. Why? Because the current system is slow and blockchain changes the 24/7 instant settlement to global access. For years, people thought Wall Street would fight crypto. Now the biggest exchanges in the world are trying to build on the same rails. Tokenization is a freight train. Tokenization is not going away. Clarity Act update hangs on one vote. Senator Tom Tillis, a key Republican. We've talked about that too many times to count. We can move on. I already covered the Eterna hybrid for trading. I already covered that. Must have did it twice. Okay, so this was really, really interesting. And then we're going to get into the chat here in just a second. I got a couple more things to cover, and then we will continue the chat, and then I'll do a recap for anyone who came in late who may have missed it. We'll do a rapid fire recap. This is a little bit longer, but I really want to share this with you guys, so bear with me. It's about 4 to 5 minutes, but this is worth it, okay? Let's listen.
Never underestimate the power of aligned incentives is really the way that I think about this.
That should sound familiar.
Yeah, I had the luxury and the luck of spending about a decade at DRW through a really interesting 10 years. And, one of the things that Don did incredibly well at DRW was align incentives with those that built and ran trading desks and the success of the overall firm. That to me was a formative lesson, and something that I've experienced over the decade plus that we've been building digital asset. Kind of anyone's question is generally, what's in it for me? And when you get to say, well, what's in it for you is what's in it for me, that tends to be a pretty powerful position for people to be in. And I don't pretend that we got this 100% correct. Time will tell. We'll have to adjust with what we learn and what we see, and we being the community here. I'm really proud of the community that we have so far, and how complementary everything is, and how they work together, and the power of those aligned incentives is pretty evident to me on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, I don't think it's an accident that we ended up in this place with the other networks because of just those historical facts like we were just talking through. Bitcoin came along, it solved a very specific problem. ETH came along, and its very initial idea was to solve the same problem in a slightly different way, but it otherwise copied a lot of the same stuff. And then we went through hell for 3 or 4 years, and then we emerged with interesting product market fit at the application layer on the networks, with a ton of copycat get-rich-quick schemes through the ICO era. And before you know it, the norm was effectively replicating Bitcoin incentives in smart contract ecosystems, where that was not the purpose for them to exist. I don't think anybody thinks Tezos is going to be sound money. No offense to Tezos, right? It's not its purpose. It's just the power of being a little late to the party on some of these things was being able to observe that. And one of the luxuries that we have from having such a rock solid customer base and community is that we were able to break the mold and take a different approach, and that we had the support of our ecosystem to do that, and the support of our customers to do that. But we'll certainly have to adjust as we see what happens.
Yeah. Can you dive a little bit deeper into DRW, Cumberland, and that experience? It seems like that was a lot of the themes of what you're saying is like taking a lot of learning.
We don't have to watch the whole thing. The main thing I wanted to point out was something that I say frequently on this channel as far as aligning interest, making sure your interests are aligned with the project that you're investing in. And I mean, that couldn't have been more well said. It's really, really easy to sell someone when you tell them, well, the same thing that's in it for you is what's in it for me. Most G7 central banks have policy meetings this week, okay? RBA, Fed, BOC, BOJ, Bank of England, ECB, SNB, all this week. So expect some volatility. There is a lot of financial policy meetings this week. Now we don't have to watch this whole thing, but this is highly important. This is probably the driest piece of information I have, but it is the most important. Just in the European Central Bank overview on Appia roadmap, the Eurosystem's official long-term strategy for building a European tokenized financial system.
You see on the next slide that I will use actually a complex chart in order to explain simply, in simple terms, why tokenization can deliver efficiency and innovation. So what you see here is actually a stylized end-to-end value chain where you see in the first row, you see actually that buyer A trades in order to purchase a security from seller B. And in the green column to the left, so you see actually the various steps and functions that are needed in order to actually.
And mind you, this is the European Central Bank showing you how they're moving forward with tokenization and that it's good for them. Again, it's coming.
Have this value chain complete. So there's the trade execution, there's the clearing, there's the settlement, and there's the asset servicing. And you also see that there are many parties there and intermediaries involved, be it the brokers, an exchange, CCP, CSD, and also the respective of custodians of buyer and seller. One feature then in the current system is that the intermediaries keep their own record of their activities. Of course, it's good practice to keep track of what you've done and also on the state of affairs. In this case, the state of the security and who owns it, etc. While it actually, this system, as it is here with various parties having the records, this leads actually to reconciliation needs time and efforts until all of these states are actually agreed by all parties. So this does slow down automation over the life cycle of a transaction or an asset. How can DLT help? And that is if we flip forward. Please, I mean, you don't see much of a change. What you visually see here is a subtle change. It's a small box around this ecosystem, which is basically the promise of DLT.
By the way, DLT is distributed ledger technology. We've heard that phrase before.
Because that is actually I mean, this should symbolize that there is actually a common network, a single network, which serves as a shared utility on which all of these assets and services actually are offered. And that means that because all parties can decentrally access the necessary information and everybody sees the same information at once, this has a strong advantage. The advantages are listed then on the next version of this same slide. On the next slide, please. Because that allows then this swiftness, because there is not the need for reconciliation. It does allow not only 24/7 work, but also seamless automated transactions. It does allow for smart contracts and also allowing the customizable automatic triggering of transactions and of actions. Then atomic settlement, i.e. the synchronous exchange of assets. And as I mentioned already, and how it is often referred to as the so-called single source of truth, actually because everybody has that the very same information. And if you go to the next slide, please. This is a bit on the conceptual framework behind. So, and for the purpose of this presentation, we focus here on two layers. And you see on top in blue, the asset and the services. So actually, you think of that, so the asset and service layers can accommodate many, I mean, a multiplicity, many settlement and investment assets and related services, each with its own governance. Even if on a DLT network, they would reside on what is then below on the network infrastructure. So this network layer is responsible for the technical processing of the transactions. And the objective here is to ensure the integrity of the ledger. But again, this makes it much easier. Such a utility makes it much easier for somebody to enter the market, offer services without always bringing all of the fundamental technical network infrastructure behind. Next slide, please. So after this part on the why, here are the objectives that we have actually in the DLT context. So the first one is that the Eurosystem, the Eurosystem objectives is that to ensure that monetary policy and financial stability are effective by maintaining central bank money as the anchor of a two-tier system. So we would like to ensure that for wholesale transactions, central bank money is being used. It is not to replace the two-tier monetary system as we have it. It rather ensures that actually a two-tier monetary system would also work when the market, and will work, when the market then moves to new technology. Secondly, we want to foster a more integrated, competitive, and innovative payments and securities ecosystem through efficient infrastructures for financial markets. So we do have the mandate in our statute and the treaty to ensure that clearing and payment systems are sound and efficient. We also want to support the integration of European financial markets, also as this facilitates the smooth and even transmission of the ECB's monetary policy. This also reduces costs and fosters competition and innovation, which will in turn contribute to the EU's Savings and Investment Union initiative and more integrated European financial markets for digital assets. Third, we would like to support strategic autonomy and increase resilience.
All right. So we don't need to continue. He's basically wrapping it up at that point. And I know that was boring. So if you hung through it, give yourself a pat on the back, give a thumbs up in the chat. You made it through all of the information, including the driest of the dry information. But usually that's the most important. That is the EU basically telling you they are going forward with tokenization, how it benefits them and why, and what their objectives are moving forward. So the European Union is moving forward with tokenization. The United States is moving forward with tokenization. We heard from the SEC. Now we're hearing from the European Union. Tokenization's a freight train. We can expect it to happen at this point. The question is how much and how fast. Is Paul Atkins right? Is the SEC right? That it's going to all be done in the next couple of years? I certainly hope so, because I'm positioned extremely well if that is the case. Crypto strikes back. Bitcoin decouples from stocks to tap 74,000 as institutional demand returns despite the energy-driven market turmoil. Again, Bitcoin up to 74,000, up approximately 7% this week, while Ether gained roughly 13%, outperforming the stock market. Institutional demand is strengthening, with corporate buyers acquiring Bitcoin at about 2.8 times the rate of the new supply, according to multiple analysts. QCP Capital and Glassnode say that options positioning around the $75,000 strike could amplify volatility if prices break out to the upside. Again, expecting it could move higher if it breaks past 74,000. That sounds familiar, doesn't it, ladies and gentlemen? That's what we were talking about at the beginning of the stream. But that's all the information. Let's take a quick check on price, see where we're at before we hop into the chat. And then we'll do a recap for anyone who came in late. So make sure you get your questions in. Make sure you hit the like button to help grow the stream. And I'm about to start talking to the chat with everyone. So get the chat rolling so we can have a conversation, because we are about done with all of the info here today. So Bitcoin now hovering right around 73.7 and XRP sitting at 151. Again, looking for a breakout above 155, 151.5. And again, Canton Network now sitting at 15.43 and still doing its thing. Right now, the overall market today is green. Green is good. It's a positive day. Let's hop into the chat. Again, keep it rolling, guys, so we can all discuss. Appreciate everyone being here today, taking your time to be here. As always, your time is your most valuable possession. Commodity, whatever word you want to use. Kelly was first in the house today. Thank you, Kelly, for being here. Feeling hopeful today. Well, green candles tend to do that, right? Good afternoon, Raul. I hit last night on CC again. Got some more. Good for you. Good for you. I'm stacked right now. I'm just doing my monthly averaging at this point. Good morning, Gunpowder. How are you today, man? Damien's in the house. Was good. Let's get that money. I'm waiting. Keep pumping. I'm waiting. SVJ in the house today. Sup from Puerto Penasco. Me and SV actually had a really good conversation in the comments on a video not too long ago. And I'm really starting to like how people are starting to have more casual conversations and they're not so charged one way or another. Me and SV had a full conversation, found some middle ground. We both love CC. And that's really what the crypto community is all about. I'm not like this polarity of being at each other's throat, like Chainlink versus XRP. They move different layers, man. They're not even focused on the same thing right now. So, I mean, they're not even focused on the same things, but people want to be combative because it's polarizing. It's good for views on X and, you know, clicks and stuff like that. So we kind of have to be leery of that. And I'm trying to build a different community around crypto. And again, you can all follow me on X at Longview Crypto. Memberships are also available if you want to do the live hangout on Wednesday nights with me and the founding core members of the Longview crew. We do that on Wednesday nights as well. Do you know if there are legal barriers for all those crypto companies to work in different jurisdictions? Surprised that hasn't come up as an issue since the EU is so regulated. Well, there's going to be regulated barriers. That's why Ripple had to get their monetary approval of Singapore. They had to get their EU license. They had to get their UK license. They're getting their Australian licensing. Like, they have to do all of this licensing. And that's why I make such a big deal about that for Ripple. Now, tokenization, maybe not so much, because it's a one-to-one representation of a physical asset. That's why I don't think tokenization is as impacted as by Clarity as payments, stable coins, things like that, because the tokenization isn't changing the value. It's not changing the way they necessarily do things. Is digitizing it and making it faster, which is what a lot of people are worried about. Honestly, because of stable coins and everything else, they're like, well, what's the need of another form of payment? You know, what's the need of XRP? XRP is not a payment token. It's a liquidity bridge, right? And that's where people have a misunderstanding of the function of an asset as well. That's why we're here for the long view. Again, all of this is to say we're here for what's going to happen in crypto over the next 5 to 10 years, not necessarily what's going to happen over the next 5 to 10 weeks. Boring. Well, I mean, when you're sitting there watching bankers talk, I mean, it's really hard to make that interesting fun, bro. Unless I was trading oil on the side, right? Oil at 94.21, waiting to make a play. I took my money and ran. I'm no longer trading the oil. I took the money that I made and the money I was using on trading oil, and I made dollar cost average purchases of Canton, XRP, Chainlink, and HBAR, and moved it all off chain, with the exception of Canton. So I took my profits and ran and reinvested it into crypto while I think it's low. Thoughts on Long Inc? Long Inc? Good investment? I don't even know what you're talking about. Long Inc. I don't know what that is. So no thoughts, because I don't even know what you're talking about right now. GEC Abs put out some good info today with a twist on the Clarity Bill. Fed wants to be able to freeze or pull back payments. That is scary. Well, that's what they're already doing, fun bro. They already have the ability to do that. I expected nothing less. That's also why XRP built their privacy layer and why Canton built their privacy layer, because they can pause and freeze transactions and make sure they're correct before actually processing them. The Fed is not going to allow anything that doesn't allow them to freeze or pull back payments. When you're talking about trillions of intraday settlement, if something gets messed up, then they need the ability to fix it. That's commonplace. I don't think that's as scary as people think. I'm more worried about CBDCs and them being able to control how we spend our money. You know, say for instance, CBDCs are live, everything's programmable, and there's a food shortage in our country or something. They can turn on and off, you know, the ability to spend money. Be like, no, you hit your food ration for this week. You can't buy more food. You know, that's what I'm worried about with programmable money and CBDCs. I'm not so much worried about them pausing and freezing payments on the back end for millions and trillions of dollars. That's already done today. It's not something we're really going to have to worry about, I don't think. Thoughts on Quantum Inc? Good investment. Not sure still. I know, I mean, everyone's really worried about quantum computing and the ability to hack and things like that in the future. But I'm not super. I think he means IonQ. It's a quantum stock. I got you. I haven't done any research on that. I'll have to look into it. I haven't really done too much research into quantum other than like the security layers for blockchain. Not sure. I honestly haven't really fully looked into the benefits of quantum computing and what they're going to have on the future in technology as well. You're a little bit ahead of me on that, Yeshua, I have to admit. But I do think quantum computing is going to have an effect in the future, but I haven't studied it enough to really understand what that might be. Freezing our assets is the same as being a CBDC. Kinda. What I believe what they're referring to in this, as far as being able to freeze assets and pull back is like large institutional settlements. Like they need to be able to verify it before they actually put it through. But that's already, like, I know people are scared of that, but that's already in existence right now. That's not something new. They already have the ability to do that with ACH transfers and FedWire and stuff like that. So I don't see them as the same thing. I see it as a function for settlement. When you're talking about settling trillions of dollars, it's kind of a necessity. So I don't believe that equals a CBDC. A CBDC is completely programmable, privatized money that's controlled by the government. So right now you can still buy cash, you can still use cash, and they can't control what you spend. Once it's a CBDC and it's all digital, then everything's plugged in. I mean, essentially the US dollar digitally with ACH funds and stuff like that is essentially already kind of a CBDC. With they can freeze your bank account right now, just like they can freeze, all that stuff. It's just part of being in the system. CBDC is a lot more control than the current banking system right now. They're just trying to keep a hold on the current payment system, in my opinion. Yeshua, I like Quantum, but I think we are too early. I waited for months on the IonQ SPAC, held it forever, nothing moved, then lost some. I think it's just too early. I don't know. You guys talk about something I'm unfamiliar with. I have not studied it. Buy your Pepe. Crypto Trump said Pepe today. I mean, Pepe, I'm not buying something that just surged 20%, man. We don't buy green candles here. But again, I'm here for the long view. I have my projects that I'm investing in. I don't think Pepe is plugging themselves into the DTCC or the New York Stock Exchange or any of those things in the near future. The ledger system is foolproof with no need for pullback. We can't say that. And even if it is, banks aren't going to trust it. You know what I mean? Even if it is, they're still going to, it's like Tommy Boy. I quote Tommy Boy all the time. They're going to want that guarantee that makes them feel all warm and fuzzy inside, right? They're going to want that guarantee to make sure everything's good in case something happens. Even if it's a guaranteed piece of shit, they still want the guarantee. Not saying that that's what the ledger is that they're going to be using, whatever distributed ledger technology that may be, but they want that guarantee. The only concern is slippage. Yeah, ask the guy who was trying to buy Aave. Ask him about slippage if you guys heard that. Someone tried to buy $50 million worth of Aave, and due to the slippage, because it was such a large order, due to that slippage, they only ended up getting $36,000 worth of Aave. So they lost roughly $49.85 million in slippage. They clicked the button, but that sucks to be them. Without pullback, they lose control. Exactly. They're going to want to have control. Again, I was never of the vein that finance was going to change. I was never of the vein that retail crypto was going to win and get what they wanted. That's why I invested in XRP. That's why I invested in CC, because they follow the banks, and I expected the banks to win. I mean, I just did. The golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. What does Pepe do? Any use case for I honestly don't know. I honestly don't even know about Pepe. So I can't bash it because I don't know about it. Todd was in a meeting, just got here. Welcome, Todd. Welcome, Todd. I'll do a rapid fire recap for the people who came in late. The Avi thing really bothers me with the slippage. It makes crypto sound unserious. I agree. And it doesn't help the fact that the guy was given a warning for this large transaction, saying you could have serious slippage issues with this, and he did it anyway. So at what point is it our job to police people for making dumb decisions? Now, granted, it does look bad, and again, these are the risks and concerns that are going to get ironed out over time because institutions won't tolerate that kind of slippage. Retail consumers at scale are not going to tolerate that kind of slippage. So, this to me is a prime example why the Ethereum network sucks and is not going to be used at scale, right? Your min sounds robotic. My min sounds robotic. But it takes crypto. It makes crypto sound unserious. But these are the things that get ironed out. I'll have to fix the mic then. I must have hit something. We'll fix that. This thing on? Is it working right now? I'll have to fix it. It shouldn't sound robotic. But when we're talking about slippage and we're talking about the ability to pull back transactions, like these are things that are not going to be tolerated at scale. This concerns me about Ethereum and why I like Canton Network so much, because I believe that the Canton Network is going to fix things. Oh, so the connection's bad? Sounds like you're in the ocean. Fix the mic. Okay, it must be my connection. Hang on. Let me fix it. Let me check it says I'm good. It says my connection is strong here. Let me look. Hopefully it fixes itself. The mic's going all crazy. Let me pull it up. Show me the stream. It might be an internet issue. I'm checking. It's not even pulling up the stream for me right now to check. It says it has excellent quality. Let me refresh this. Maybe it'll fix it. Okay, I just refreshed the stream. Oh, hey, mic working now. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I think we're good. Oh my goodness, man. Audio, my mic failed. Here it goes. Audio playback device, switch device. I think it may have switched to a different mic. All right, it's working now. I can get back through here. That was fun. I have no clue. All right. Me and my girlfriend Devin and my dog Maui love watching your live streams. Well, thank you, Steven. Appreciate you being here today. That would never happen in TradFi, I believe, in crypto. As far as the slippage issues, absolutely. And we just fixed the mic, so we don't have to worry about that. Serious slippage doesn't mean millions, though. He could probably tolerate losing a few hundreds or thousands. I agree. And that's where the Ethereum network sucks. Like, they need to have things in place to deal with that. And we got through the connection, so that's good. You guys had fun with that. It's a little shaky. We can hear you, but it's a connection issue, breaking up audio, sound jittery. It sounds fire like you're deep sea snorkeling, said Cordell Lewis. RFK Jr. You know, I could have fun one day. I could do like an AI representation of myself and change all the wording and stuff like that. So I can give myself a female voice. I can sound like, you can do all kinds of stuff with AI now. It's nuts. I could come on here and turn myself into a hot redhead. Test. Audio still working, or at least it should be. My daughter works for one of the big banks, and they purchase stocks for clients. There are mistakes where they have to pull back all the time. That is mind-blowing because they're dealing in millions. Absolutely. Totally lost voice after you refresh. Muted. I fixed all that. Should be working now. There we go. We heard the... It came back on right at the opportune time, huh, Kelly? Bubble Cuppy's loud and clear. We're back. Came back when you said... Perfect timing. Hallelujah. Not to mention Ethereum network is so daggone expensive. And this is one of the things why I love the Canton network, because a lot of people factor it because it deals with institutions. A lot of people factor in because of that, it's targeting directly competition for XRP. But the Canton network is more of a privatized Ethereum than it is a privatized XRPL. I actually think it's a better option for institutions than Ethereum because the way they do the pricing for transactions, it's denominated in dollars. So regardless of the price of Canton, it's still the same dollar amount. So the fee actually never changes for the user, regardless of slippage, regardless of, price volatility of the token, whatever, and it completely fixes all of those issues. If Ethereum would make some kind of change to do something like that, where fees are denominated in dollars and they just use Ethereum as the gas, depending on the market, like that would completely fix that issue. And that's why one of the reasons why I think Canton's going to outperform them institutionally, because the fees are concrete. They never change. It's US dollar denominated. And regardless of the token price, CC still used as the gas. Couldn't hear anything when you spoke about Stronghold. And again, I did research previously on Stronghold. I do think it's a good project, but it literally operates very, very similarly to XRP. And I just don't see it with strong enough infrastructure to catch up. That's just me, though. I could be very wrong. But when we're looking at how Clarity's playing out, when we're looking at who's built, what institutions are working where, these, we just saw the SEC talk about it. Everyone's ready to jump into these things like right now. So as soon as Clarity happens, as soon as legal framework happens in the EU and Asia, as they continue to work together, the people who are already in place, I believe, are the ones who are going to win. I do think that the newer cryptos are going to get left behind. And I think some of those projects could disappear entirely over the next year or two. But that's just me. We were already seeing some of the smaller crypto exchanges starting to go bankrupt now. I didn't put that on here, but I did see that. So even though Stronghold's a good project, my concern with Stronghold is that they were just a little too late to the party. But that's just me. I could be very wrong, but that's my opinion on it. Please look into Quantum when you get the chance. Don't you worry. I will certainly take a look at it, okay? Quick recap for everyone. Here it goes. Something went wrong. Couldn't output sound for a second there. It said something went wrong, so I must have fixed it. Let's see. Let me pull up and we can do a recap for everyone real quickly. And then we can finish up the chat and go from there. So let me pull this up here. Boom. All right. So today we talked about price first and foremost. Price currently for XRP at 151.7. Again, I have had a line set at 151.5 for a long time. I've wanted to see it break through that and hold it. It's broken through, but will it hold? We want to see it maintain 151.5 and move up to the next leg. We'll be able to see that based on Bitcoin and what Bitcoin's going to do. Because I've been wanting Bitcoin to break past 72 and hold it. If it holds 72 and continues up to 75, 76,000, then I believe XRP is going to hold its $1.51 level and continue moving up to the $1.80 range will be the next leg, the $1.70, $1.80 range. And when we're looking at CC, CC's hanging out today at 15.35, got up today as high as 15.5. Again, these are long view targets, right? These are items we hold for the long view, not necessarily what the price is doing today, tomorrow, or next week, but what they're going to do over the next 5 to 10 years. So real quick, rapid fire update for everything you missed. Bitcoin daily chart currently seeing, oh, this wasn't even one I was covering. That was just random that popped up. China trade talks begin. U.S. Treasury Scott Bessent and the Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng have begun economic talks in Paris. Eleanor Tourette, severe storms and tornado warnings causing flight disruptions have forced the crypto tax roundtable to be postponed yet again. 2 of the hosting members of Congress were among those affected by the flight delays. Again, this was postponed last month due to snow, being postponed again now due to tornadoes. Again, this is in regards to crypto taxes. We covered SEC Chair Paul Atkins and what he has to say about tokenization over the next several years. Let's see what he says about tokenization for the long view here.
Risk into the system.
Do you expect this is where financial services is going?
You're
Are the major banks and the brokers out there today moving increasingly toward tokenization?
Oh, absolutely. And it's the way the world will be, here in the, I mean, maybe not even in 10 years, maybe even a lot less time, maybe a couple of years from now. So I think that all of this modernization of the markets, I think, is good. And the trouble that we've seen here over the past few years is that the SEC, unlike historically, it never was necessarily at the vanguard of pushing new innovations. It was always a little bit behind the market, of course. But here recently, it's been almost standing athwart the marketplace, and as it's as all these new innovations were coming about. So that's no more. We're actually embracing it, and I believe that we need to be embracing it to keep the United States at the forefront as far as cryptocurrencies and whatnot. There were really only 2 countries in the world here in the last few years that were working to make cryptocurrencies illegal, and that was Communist China and the U.S. through the SEC. So that's changed. It's a new day now, and so we want to embrace.
All right, so he's saying everything is going to be done in a couple of years. Ondo Finance, tokenized stocks change everything. Is similar benefits of stablecoin for cash. Once you tokenize stocks, you can send them 24/7. Again, increasing trading. Cora coming to the Canton Network, private trading infrastructure for on-chain markets powered by Canton Network, launching this week. CC is now live on Eterna. And Spotlight premiere for T-Rise, discussing the Canton Foundation and T-Rise coming to the Canton Network, building a regulated asset onboarding layer for tokenized private markets. Again, private markets. We discussed the private credit issue that we are having in the country that could lead towards a potential recession, with Blue Owl, BlackRock, Blackstone, Morgan Stanley, Cliffwater, and JP Morgan all having major issues in their private credit funds. This is not nothing, something to pay attention to. QCP, pleased to share that QCP is joining the Canton Network as a super validator. Grayscale said XRP, among other cryptocurrencies, could be repriced once Clarity Act passes. Diana, European Central Bank, officially accept tokenized securities for collateral starting March 30th, XRP ledger code inside. And we talked about Wall Street is putting the $126 trillion stock market on blockchain. NASDAQ, the Intercontinental Exchange, the company that owns the New York Stock Exchange, are exploring ways to bring equities on chain. We're talking about a $126 trillion global stock market. The idea is simple. Turn traditional shares into tokenized equities and trade on blockchain rails. Tokenization is a freight train. It is coming for everything. Talking about the Clarity Act hanging on one vote. We've heard that story 100 times. This was a longer video with one of the co-founders of Digital Asset. Primarily was really, really cool about this one space right here.
Never underestimate the power of aligned incentives is really the way that I think about this. Yeah, I had the luxury and the luck of spending about a decade at DRW through a really interesting 10 years. And, one of the things that Don did incredibly well at DRW was align incentives with those that built and ran trading desks and the success of the overall firm. That's
Aligning incentives with the people you're working with. We've said this before. I talk about when I invest, you can always count in finance for people to do what's best for their own personal interest in finance. So if you can align your interests, it's a very, very easy way to make money. And if you want to watch the full thing, you can go back and do the replay of the stream. The first 20, 30 minutes was all the meat of the stream, and then we got into a live Q&A. Most G7 central banks have policy meetings this week. RBA, Fed, BOC, BOJ, BOE, ECB, and SMB all have policy meetings this week. So expect some volatility. And then subjective views. This was the European Central Bank overview on the Appia roadmap. So their overview, their roadmap for tokenization and digital ledger technology moving forward. I won't replay the whole thing. It's boring, but you can watch the replay. And when we're talking about Europe sitting here having conversations about how they're going to move on how they're going to move forward with tokenization and how they're going to move on with digital ledger technology and how it's going to benefit them. We hear the SEC talking about the tokenization there, might not even be 10 years. He expects it to be done in a couple years, right? We're seeing governments basically projecting this is going to happen faster than anyone anticipated as well. So it's amazing to me that so many people have their head in the sand around tokenization. Anything that's aligned with tokenization, in my opinion, is going to do very, very well over the next 5 years, and which is why I'm heavily aligned with tokenization infrastructure. We can see how it's being built out in the long view here. But that's just me. Not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. You should always do your own research. Let's get back to the chat. I know some of you guys were talking. How long before somebody figures out how to crack and steal one of these major cryptos? People have been trying. I'm sure they have. People have had their wallets hacked. They've had their accounts hacked. People have lost money. That's one of the big issues with self-custody, is the fear of losing money. I give up. My question keeps getting removed or skipped over. Well, I promised you I haven't skipped over or removed it. Are any of my moderators there? Moderators, has anyone deleted SV's chat? I know I have not. So I haven't deleted any chats. Now, I do know if you're including a link, they won't let it go through, and there's some keywords that YouTube won't let you post either. But I can assure you, I am not deleting anyone's chats. The only chats I will delete is if people are being disrespectful and people are being hateful and hurtful and stuff like that. I don't tolerate that in the stream. But I have no problem with other opinions. I'll discuss those all day long. So it must be something to do with wording or a link that's not letting it get to the stream, because I don't think any of the moderators are deleting your chats either. Funbro says he doesn't see it. Just saw your hello. Okay. Yeah, I saw his hello up there earlier. And I commented on that, but I didn't see a chat. Just put it in again. Yeah, it's not going through. It's got to be something that you're doing. Send it to me on X. If you're following me on X, send me the question on X. I'll see what I can do. He must be bored. Maybe. One more. What is your opinion on Flare? I think Flare is an excellent project, and I think it's going to do well with XRP, especially with how much they're building out DeFi for XRP. I think it's a great DeFi option. And I also know that this year they stopped a lot of their airdrops because a lot of people got Flare from the airdrops and it was keeping the price low. But they're getting rid of all that additional supply now that the airdrops have stopped. So I do think Flare has room to run as well. I actually own some as a dart throw. It's not one of my core pillars, but I do think it's a good project as well. I actually do own a little bit of it, and I have some XRP staked on the Flare network that's wrapped in Flare. So I have some FXRP that I do have staked out there. Wednesday and Thursday, including Bank of Japan, hoping for rate increases. Let's go dominoes. You know, if it does, it does. I've always said, you know, if that theory were to come to pass, that means there's going to be a lot of people suffering out there too. We have to keep that in mind. So, it feels good to be rooting for our XRP, but at the same time, knowing that in that scenario, rooting for XRP means rooting for a lot of people to be struggling as well, which, we were there first. We did our research. We risked our assets. We risked our cash and positioned ourselves. So we should be able to feel good about it. But at the same time, knowing that in the back of my head, I always just take my happiness with a grain of salt because I know that means that others are going to suffer as well. And it's climbing at a good clip to 152.7. Let's pull it up, see what we're looking at. Yeah, well, let's see. That's Bitcoin. Bitcoin over 74,000. Can it push beyond 74.5, which was its previous high on this run? Again, we need to set new levels, right? It's stair steps. We got to set new levels. Let's see what XRP is doing here. 152.6. It is above the 151.5. Will it hold 151.5? That is the question. That's what I'm looking forward to, but that's just me. I see some more chats. We will cover the chats. Let's see here. All right, let's see. Canton representing 7K plus RWAs and only one distributed RWA XYZ. When can we see them distributing the rest? And how will this impact overall awareness of CC and the price as it develops further? And only one distribute. Yeah, they're mainly focusing on repo right now. They don't have any other markets in there. So with Canton, as they get more tokenization on chain, more value on chain, every time there's a transaction, it's denominated in dollars, but they use CC to burn it. So more tokenization on Canton Network means more burn fees for Canton Network. And people, I think it's going to catch people's attention when it makes a massive move. People are going to finally start talking about it. It made a massive move over the last 3 months, and it got some people's attention when it was moving opposite of Bitcoin. But once the burn rate flips to deflationary and it gets another appreciation, because it's going to have to me, the fact that it's going to go deflationary is inevitable as more assets and more tokenization comes on the network. So to me, not even that. They're already partnered in with the DTCC to do the pilot starting this quarter. So even as that begins, it's going to push them over the burn mint equilibrium and turn them deflationary. Once that happens, it's going to appreciate in price. According to my model, once it gets deflationary with some volume, it could move anywhere to 40% or 40 cents to $1. Once it moves to a deflationary element this year. And if it does, a 2-3x, that's going to catch attention. There's going to be FOMO involved, and it also depends on what a lot more is ramping up. So to me, I think that's the overall impact and awareness of CC. Most people aren't going to catch a glimpse of it till it moves deflationary and gets like a 3 or 4x, and then everyone's going to be jumping in. That's what I think. And then you'll also see a lot of people complaining that it's anti-crypto and all these things, and that because it's for the banks, it's built by institutions for institutions. That's why I researched it, because I think those are going to be the winners. But that's just me. In what way will they be suffering in? Well, if the reverse carry trade unfolds, that means a lot of tech stocks, commodities, a lot of U.S. stocks and U.S. ETFs, U.S. treasuries, bonds, and stuff like that are going to get liquidated. So a lot of people are going to lose their savings. They're going to lose their 401ks. They're going to lose their investments, because in a liquidity rotation like that, if the reverse carry trade does fall off, that means that Japan is dumping U.S. stocks for liquidity. And that's going to crash our stock market. And when that happens, people who are invested in their 401ks. People are already hurting right now with their credit card debt, with their mortgages, people dipping into their 401ks at all-time highs right now. So if the reverse carry trade does unfold and it crashes our market, people are going to lose millions. They're going to lose their retirement. People who are over leveraged are going to get wiped out. Like, a lot of people will get hurt in a crash like that comes with the reverse carry trade. So that's what I'm talking about, that a lot of people are going to suffer. The people who would win in that situation are the people who position themselves in crypto for that exact reason. It's a difficult hedge to bet for or against. It's kind of like calling the Big Short. Like, if you've ever seen the movie The Big Short about the housing market, you know, they're betting against the housing market, which meant millions of Americans suffered. A lot of people suffered during that 2008 Great Recession. People suffered worldwide. So these are the things we have to look about, you know. Are we going to see more basket ETFs after T. Rowe Price just updated its active crypto ETF filing? Yes. I've always said that I think that as this moves forward, because currently ETFs only get about 1 to 2% of all ETF investment. And I said, if you guys were here a few months ago, I personally said that I thought the index ETFs are what's going to kick it over the hill. That most of the retirement investment and most of the retail investment, I do believe, is going to go to the index ETFs, because you can see it. People invest in the S&P 500. They want a broad exposure. They don't want to go in and research XRP or CC or ETH or Bitcoin or whatever. They just want to make a bet on crypto. And that's what an index ETF does. It gives them a broad exposure to crypto. So I think that the majority of investors are going to invest into crypto through index ETFs. I think that's going to be the biggest thing moving forward. My personal opinion. So I think index ETFs in regards to crypto are going to be massive over the next 5 years, because I think that's how the majority of people are going to get exposure to it. Just like they would get exposure to tech stocks with S&P 500 and things like that. Americans love index ETFs. They love getting broad exposure because it means they don't have to do the research. It's just easy. They can buy one ETF and they're exposed to everything. Here's a good Canton versus XRP comparison. XRP right now is just about 10x Canton, $1.52 versus 15.2. Easy way to keep track of which one does better. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, that's yes and no, because Canton has such a small market cap right now. It's only at about 5 billion. So yeah, if it were to 10x, it would be, then we could keep track and see which one's going which as far as how they're moving, because right now Canton has so much more room to grow than XRP does. Darn shame we aren't closer in proximity. Definitely would have a beer with you. And I don't drink beer. I don't drink beer either. You smoke? We can smoke a bowl. Hey, this is me. I'm just a dude doing research. Big money keeps positioning around XRP. I do still love my XRP. I know I've been talking about Canton a lot lately to my XRP community, but we haven't had a lot of XRP news recently, and I feel like we've talked about the same things. I actually have several subscribers who are still subscribed. I know they are, who've said they'll be back when the pump happens. They love the channel, but they just can't stay up with it day to day because it's the same story. It feels like when we get news, it feels like the same story we've told several times in the past, with different packaging sometimes. And I try not to do that to you guys. So I try to talk about a world of different information. That's why I talk about the multiple different cryptocurrencies. And I also include what's going on in the stock market and what's going on geopolitically, because all of these things are intertwined. So I can find different things to talk about all the time. But a lot of people want to hear specifically on one topic usually. So I try to target things to one topic, and then we have our open Q&A. I hope and think you are right. I started researching Canton last week. It does look sexy. I've got buy orders, but they haven't come through yet. Funbro says 100%. Well, I appreciate all of you guys. We're at an hour and 20 minutes. We've gone through the chat. We've done the recap. So do me a favor. Hit the like button on your way out. Help to grow the stream. And I will see you guys tomorrow. And you never know, make sure you're subscribed. Hit the alert button because you never know when I may just